A magnitude 8.8 earthquake has triggered evacuations and tsunami warnings in both Russia and Japan. The tremor struck Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula, which is 250 kilometers away from Japan's Pacific coast.
On July 30th, Russia's nuclear submarine base was wiped out by a devastating tsunami and earthquake. A natural disaster that struck right at the heart of Moscow's Pacific Fleet. And it seems like even nature is turning against Putin. The magnitude 8.8 quake shook the Kamchatka Peninsula with brutal force. Within minutes, massive tsunami waves slammed into the coast, and in their path lay the Rybachi submarine base in Vilyuchinsk. The pride of Russia's Pacific nuclear arsenal. This isn't just any naval facility. This is the home of Russia's most lethal undersea weapons. Burai-class ballistic missile submarines like the Alexander Nevsky and Vladimir Monomakh, each carrying 16 Bulava missiles capable of unleashing up to 96 nuclear warheads. The Belgorod, armed with Poseidon nuclear drones. Oscar II cruise missile subs Tomsk, Omsk and Irkutsk, carrying Zircon hypersonic missiles. Together, these vessels represent hundreds of nuclear warheads, the core of Russia's nuclear second strike capability. And in minutes, nature hit them harder than any enemy ever has. The quake's epicenter lay just 130 kilometers from the base. The shock rocked the entire facility. Piers cracked, cranes twisted, and power to critical support systems flickered and failed. Then came the tsunami. Waves. Up to 4 meters high crashed into the coastline, flooding port facilities, submerging sections of the harbour, and ripping smaller support vessels from their moorings. Satellite images show the damage: battered docks, damaged infrastructure, and signs of frantic emergency activity. Russian state media remains silent, but the truth is clear. One of the most critical nodes of Russia's nuclear deterrent has taken a direct hit. This base is supposed to be untouchable, the hornet's nest of Russian strategic power in the Pacific. But Kamchatka is one of the most seismically active regions on the planet. No missile or submarine can defend against the shifting earth or a wall of water. The impact is more than physical. It's strategic. The Pacific Fleet has long been the neglected branch of Russia's navy, starved of modernization funds. Many subs are Cold War relics held together by patchwork repairs. Even the newer Borei A subs are dependent on fragile, outdated dock facilities now damaged by the quake. The world is asking hard questions. How many submarines are fully operational? How long will repairs take? And how vulnerable is Russia's nuclear deterrent if one earthquake can disrupt it so severely? For Putin, this is an embarrassing blow. The Rybachi base was meant to project power into the Pacific, to intimidate rivals like the US, Japan, and NATO allies. Instead, images of battered docks and flooded facilities project vulnerability. For years, Russian state media has boasted about the Pacific Fleet. They've paraded the Borei-class submarines, the Alexander Nevsky, Vladimir Monomakh, and the newer Borei A-boats like the Prince Oleg and Generalissimus Suvorov, as symbols of modern stealth and firepower. Each carries 16 Bulava intercontinental missiles, each missile able to deliver multiple nuclear warheads. Add to that the Delta III K-44 Ryazan, an aging Soviet-era boomer still clinging to relevance. The Oscar II cruise missile submarines Tomsk, Omsk, and Irkutsk bristling with caliber Onyx and Zircon missiles. And the Yasenem attack subs Novosibirsk and Krasnoyarsk. Together, these subs represent hundreds of nuclear warheads. But there's one problem the Kremlin can't missile its way out of. Kamchatka is one of the most active seismic zones in the world. The quake, shallow, at just under 20 kilometers deep, slammed infrastructure designed decades ago. While the submarines themselves, submerged and pressurized, can ride out shockwaves, The docks, missile storage bunkers, electrical systems, and support facilities are far more vulnerable. Russian military bloggers are already whispering about cracks in dry docks, damage to cranes, and disruptions to the base's aging power grid. State media, silent. But footage from nearby towns shows the scale of destruction. Piers half submerged, small vessels tossed like toys, port buildings leaning at dangerous angles. And then came the tsunami. Waves as high as 4 meters struck the eastern coast. In Severokurilsk, a fishing port was flooded. Ships broke free, smashing into one another. In Yelizovo district, meteorological stations reported waves crashing into infrastructure. Over 2,700 civilians were evacuated. The Rybachi base sits in a narrow bay. It was protected from the full brunt of the tsunami, but the surges still battered its moorings. Dockside support ships were forced to scatter. Old infrastructure creaked. Emergency crews scrambled to secure munitions bunkers. The symbolism is impossible to ignore. This is supposed to be one of the crown jewels of Russia's deterrent force. And yet, a single earthquake reminded the world how fragile even the most fearsome arsenals can be when nature intervenes. For critics of Russia, this isn't just about seismic risk. It's about systemic weakness. The Pacific Fleet has long been the neglected sibling of Russia's Northern Fleet. Modernization has been slow. Funding, despite recent rearmament announcements, has lagged. Some subs are cutting edge. Others are Cold War relics kept afloat by patchwork repairs. The Belgorod, often hyped in Russian media as a doomsday weapon carrier, is brand new, but its operational status is murky. Western analysts question whether its Poseidon drone system is fully deployable. And now, after the quake, questions are swirling about whether the base can even support these platforms without urgent repairs. What if the worst had happened? What if a direct hit had damaged missile storage? What if maintenance facilities housing nuclear warheads had been compromised? The risk of contamination, of accidental detonation, or of uncontrolled loss is a nightmare scenario for Moscow and for global security. The Pacific quake has highlighted an uncomfortable truth. Russia's military power, especially its nuclear fleet, relies on infrastructure built in vulnerable locations, maintained under financial strain and exposed to natural disasters. Moscow has spent billions to project power from its Pacific fleet, but all it takes is one earthquake to expose the cracks in the facade. Second part. This was not the first time nor the last that Russia's submarine force has been a source of embarrassment. On August 12, 2000, the Russian submarine Kursk K-141, a giant of the seas, disappeared into the cold, unforgiving waters of the Barents Sea. What began as a routine military training mission quickly became one of the worst submarine disasters in history. 2 massive explosions ripped through the submarine, killing most of the 118 crew members instantly and trapping the survivors 108 meters below the surface in freezing darkness. The world watched in shock as Russia's response unfolded in real time. Hours turned into days. Offers of international help were rejected. The rescue was slow, chaotic, and filled with secrecy. By the time divers finally reached the Kursk, all 118 crew members were gone. The Kursk wasn't just another submarine. At 154 meters long and weighing 18,000 tons, it was one of the largest and most advanced in the Russian Navy's fleet, an Oscar II class sub armed with 24 cruise missiles and torpedoes capable of destroying an entire aircraft carrier group. It was built tough, with a double hull designed to survive direct torpedo hits, and was widely believed to be nearly unsinkable. And yet, on that August day, it sank. Not because of an enemy attack, but because of an internal explosion caused by leaking hydrogen peroxide fuel from a defective practice torpedo. The first blast tore through the forward section, instantly killing everyone in the torpedo compartment. The fire and pressure ignited more torpedoes. The second explosion was catastrophic, equivalent to 2 to 3 tons of TNT. It ripped through the inner and outer hulls, registering on seismic monitors as far away as Alaska. The Kursk plunged to the seabed. 23 crew members survived the initial blasts, retreating to the aft compartment. They fought to stay alive in complete darkness, sealing themselves in and waiting for a rescue that never came. Notes later recovered described their final hours. Russia's handling of the disaster deepened the tragedy. The Navy failed to launch an immediate rescue. The submarine's emergency buoy, designed to signal distress, had been deliberately disabled in a previous mission. International rescue offers from the UK, Norway, and the US were rejected. By the time Russia finally accepted help, it was too late. What followed was one of the most daring salvage operations in naval history. In October 2001, a $70 million international mission led by Dutch companies successfully lifted the Kursk from the seabed. The bow section, destroyed by explosions, was cut off and left on the seafloor due to safety risks. The rest of the sub was recovered, allowing investigators to confirm the cause and families to recover the remains of the crew. The Kursk disaster was more than a national tragedy. It was a humiliation for the Russian Navy. A state-of-the-art submarine lost during peacetime training, a rescue marred by denial, delay, and outdated equipment, and a salvage operation that depended on foreign expertise and technology.